Hello everyone. Welcome back to Naruto Fix. Today we have another interesting what if Naruto story. Which is what if Naruto and Itachi Uchiha worked together in secret. Part 1. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Now, without wasting any time, let's begin. The mission report never existed. Because it was never supposed to. Konoha slept peacefully that night. Too peacefully. No alarms. No warnings. No signs of danger. And yet, something was happening. Far beyond the village walls. Two figures stood in the shadows. One watched. The other waited. Naruto Uzumaki wasn't smiling. Wasn't loud. Wasn't careless. He was silent. Completely. And beside him, Itachi Uchiha. The man Konoha feared. The man Naruto was never supposed to trust. You're late, Itachi said calmly. Naruto crossed his arms slightly. You said midnight. Itachi's gaze didn't shift. I said when the village sleeps. A pause. This is earlier. Naruto smirked faintly. You're still annoying. That small moment didn't match the situation. Because what they were doing was dangerous. Not just physically, but politically. Because if anyone found out Naruto Uzumaki was working with Itachi Uchiha, it wouldn't just be a problem. It would be a disaster. You understand the risk, Itachi said quietly. Naruto nodded. Yeah. A pause. That's why I'm here. That answer carried weight. Because Naruto didn't come here blindly. He chose this. 3 weeks earlier, Naruto had found something. Not during a mission. Not during training. By accident. A pattern. Disappearances. Silent. Unnoticed. Not civilians. Not random. Shinobi. Low level at first. Then higher ranks. No reports. No investigations. Because officially, nothing was wrong. But Naruto noticed. Because Naruto always noticed what others ignored. You shouldn't be here. That was the first thing Itachi said. When Naruto confronted him. Not hostile. Not surprised. Just aware. Naruto didn't attack. Didn't shout. You know what's happening, don't you? Itachi didn't answer immediately. Because he did. More than you, Itachi said calmly. Naruto stepped closer. Then tell me. Quote. A pause. Why are shinobi disappearing? Itachi's eyes narrowed slightly. Because someone is removing them. That answer was too simple. Who? Naruto asked. Itachi looked at him. Directly. Someone Konoha doesn't know exists. Quote. Silence. Because that didn't make sense. Then how do you know? Naruto said. Itachi's voice remained calm. Because I've seen the aftermath. A pause. And survived it. That line changed everything. Because if Itachi couldn't stop it, then this wasn't normal. Naruto's expression hardened. Then we stop it together. Itachi looked at him. Studying him. You trust me. Naruto didn't hesitate. Number. Quote. A pause. But I trust what I saw. That answer was honest. And that's why Itachi accepted. Back to the present. The two stood facing the dark forest ahead. Silent. Focused. They'll move soon, Itachi said. Naruto cracked his knuckles slightly. Good. A pause. I'm tired of waiting. Itachi glanced at him. This isn't a fight you can rush. Naruto's eyes sharpened. Then I'll keep up. The wind shifted. And suddenly, both of them moved. At the same time. No signal. No command. Just understanding. Because this wasn't coincidence anymore. This was coordination. Hidden. Perfect. And somewhere deep in the forest. Something watched them. Not afraid. Not surprised. But ready. Because Naruto Uzumaki and Itachi Uchiha. Working together. was never part of the plan. And now, everything was about to change. The forest didn't make a sound. Not a rustle. Not a breath. It was too still. Naruto felt it immediately. This wasn't natural. Beside him, Itachi Uchiha slowed just slightly, not stopping, but adjusting. That alone told Naruto everything. Something was close. Naruto Uzumaki shifted his stance mid-movement, his usual loud presence gone completely. No clones. No unnecessary chakra. Just awareness. Left. Naruto whispered. Itachi didn't respond. He already knew. A shadow flickered between the trees. Gone instantly. Too fast for normal perception. Naruto stopped. That's not a shinobi. Itachi's voice came quietly. Number. A pause. It's something pretending to be one. Quote. That answer didn't sit right. Naruto's eyes narrowed. What does that even mean? Before Itachi could answer, the air shifted. Not violently. Not loudly. But enough. And suddenly, 3 figures appeared, standing in front of them. Identical. Same height. Same posture. Same blank expression. Naruto frowned. Clones. Itachi's gaze sharpened. Number. A pause. Worse. The 3 figures moved at once. Not charging. Not attacking wildly. Precise. Targeting. Naruto reacted instantly, stepping forward, his movement sharp and controlled. He struck the first one. And his fist passed through it. Not like smoke. Not like illusion. Like it wasn't fully there. What the? The second one attacked. Naruto blocked. But the impact felt delayed. Like it connected a second too late. Their timing is off, Naruto muttered. Itachi stepped in. Effortless. He didn't strike. He observed. They're not synchronized with this world, Itachi said calmly. Naruto glanced at him. Explain faster. Itachi's eyes didn't leave the targets. They exist slightly out of phase. Quote. That explanation made sense. But also didn't. Naruto gritted his teeth. So how do we hit them? Itachi finally moved. Fast. But not directly at them. He adjusted his timing. Just slightly. And struck. This time. It connected. The figure distorted. Then vanished. Not defeated. Removed. Naruto's eyes widened slightly. So it's about timing. Itachi nodded. And awareness. The remaining 2 attacked again. But now, Naruto adjusted. He didn't react to what he saw. He reacted to what he felt. A split-second delay. And then, he struck. Direct hit. The second figure disappeared. The last one hesitated. Just for a moment. And that moment was enough. Itachi ended it. Silence returned instantly. As if nothing had happened. Naruto exhaled slowly. Okay. A pause. That was not normal. Itachi didn't respond immediately. Because his attention was elsewhere. They're testing us, he said quietly. Naruto frowned. Who? Itachi looked deeper into the forest. The one controlling them. Naruto's expression hardened. Then let's find them. Quote. Itachi didn't move. They want us to. That line slowed everything. Because if this was a trap, then walking forward meant stepping into it. Naruto smirked slightly. Good. A pause. Saves us time. Quote. Itachi glanced at him briefly. Not approving. Not disagreeing. Just acknowledging. Stay focused, Itachi said. Naruto nodded. Always. They moved again. But now, the forest felt different. Not quiet. Watching. Because whatever they had just faced was only the beginning. And deeper ahead, something far more dangerous waited. Not just observing, but planning. Because Naruto and Itachi working together was a problem. And problems had to be eliminated. The deeper they went, the less the forest felt like a place, and the more it felt like a boundary. The trees grew thinner, the shadows sharper, and the silence. It wasn't natural anymore. It was controlled. Naruto Uzumaki slowed slightly, his senses stretching outward, not just searching for chakra, but for inconsistencies. Something about this area didn't align with the world outside it. Beside him, Itachi Uchiha stopped completely. Naruto noticed instantly. What is it? Itachi didn't answer right away. He raised his hand slightly. Not forming a jutsu. Just feeling. We crossed it, Itachi said quietly. Naruto frowned. Crossed what? A pause. A boundary. That word changed everything. Naruto looked around again. The forest was still there. The ground was still solid. But now, he felt it too. Like the world had shifted half a step. So we're not in the same place anymore, Naruto muttered. Itachi nodded. We're close to whoever created those things. Naruto's expression hardened. Good. But Itachi didn't move. Be careful, he said. A pause. From here on, what you see may not match what's real. Naruto smirked slightly. Then I'll just trust my instincts. Itachi's eyes narrowed slightly. Make sure they're enough. And then, they moved again. This time, slower. More deliberate. Every step tested. Every movement controlled. Because now, they weren't just tracking something. They were inside its domain. A few minutes later, Naruto stopped. Not because he saw something, but because he didn't. Itachi. No response. Naruto turned. And froze. Because Itachi wasn't there. Gone. No sound. No trace. Just missing. Naruto's eyes narrowed instantly. Genjutsu. He closed his eyes for a second. Focused. Opened them again. Nothing changed. So it's not that. That meant this was real. Naruto exhaled slowly. Great. Now, he was alone. Or at least, that's what it wanted him to think. The air shifted slightly. And a voice came from everywhere. Interesting. Naruto didn't react outwardly. You noticed faster than expected. Naruto looked around calmly. Show yourself. A faint laugh echoed. Not yet. A pause. I want to see more. Naruto's eyes sharpened. Then stop hiding. The voice didn't answer that. Instead, the world around him changed. Not gradually. Instantly. The forest disappeared. Replaced by something else. A vast empty space. No ground. No sky. Just nothing. Naruto stood in it, unaffected. So this is your domain, he said. The voice responded calmly. A fragment of it. Naruto crossed his arms slightly. You're the one behind the disappearances. A pause. Yes. No denial. No hesitation. That honesty made it worse. Why? Naruto asked. The voice answered immediately. Because your world is inefficient. Quote. Naruto frowned. That's your reason. It's the only one that matters. The space around Naruto shifted slightly. Not attacking, but reacting. People fight. They fail. They repeat the same mistakes, the voice continued. So I remove the ones who will. Naruto's expression hardened. Before they even do anything. Yes. That answer was too familiar. Naruto's eyes narrowed. You sound just like someone I know. A pause. Perhaps they learned from me. Silence. Because that meant this wasn't new. This influence had already reached Konoha. Naruto clenched his fist slightly. You're not fixing anything. A step forward. You're controlling it. The voice didn't deny it. Control is efficiency. Naruto shook his head. Number. A pause. It's weakness. That statement shifted the atmosphere. For the first time, the presence reacted. Weakness. The voice repeated. Naruto's gaze stayed steady. Yeah, a step forward. Because you're afraid of what people might choose. Silence. Because that hit something. The space around Naruto tightened slightly. Not attacking, but acknowledging. Interesting, the voice said again. A pause. You're different. Naruto smirked faintly. I get that a lot. The voice didn't laugh this time. Let's test that. And suddenly, the space collapsed. Not outward, inward, toward Naruto. Because now, this wasn't observation anymore. This was engagement. And Naruto had just stepped into a fight far beyond anything he had faced before. Alone. Without Itachi. Inside something that didn't follow the rules of his world. And somewhere, hidden within that domain, Itachi Uchiha opened his eyes slowly. Because he wasn't gone. He had been separated. For a reason. And now, he had his own part to play. The collapse didn't feel like impact. It felt like compression. Everything around Naruto Uzumaki folded inward without force, without resistance, like space itself had decided to close in on him. There was no wind, no explosion, no visible attack. Just pressure. Absolute. Silent. Unavoidable. Naruto didn't panic. He didn't rush. He didn't react the way most shinobi would. He observed. Because something about this place told him one thing clearly. Fighting blindly wouldn't work. The pressure tightened. Not crushing his body, but limiting his presence. So this is how you attack, Naruto muttered quietly. The voice returned, calm as ever. This isn't an attack. Quote. A pause. This is adjustment. Naruto's eyes narrowed. You're trying to reshape the space around me. Correct. That confirmation came too easily. Naruto exhaled slowly. Then I'll just stop letting you. Quote. That sounded simple. But it wasn't. Because the moment Naruto tried to push outward, the space responded. Not resisting, but adapting. The pressure shifted, redirected, as if the domain itself was learning him. You're fast, Naruto said. I have to be, the voice replied. You're not like the others. That line confirmed something important. Naruto wasn't the first, but he was different. Naruto planted his foot forward slightly. Not to attack, to anchor. Because if the space itself was unstable, he needed something stable, even if it was just himself. The pressure intensified again. This time sharper. Targeted. Naruto moved. Not away, but through it. A sudden burst of chakra pushed outward. Not to overpower, but to create imbalance. And for the first time, the space reacted imperfectly. A flicker. Small, but real. Naruto's eyes sharpened. Got it. He moved again. Faster now. Not attacking the domain, but disrupting its rhythm. Because this wasn't about strength. This was about timing. Every time the space adjusted, Naruto shifted. Every time it compressed, Naruto redirected. Until, for a brief moment, the pressure broke. Just slightly. Enough. Naruto stepped forward, and the space around him changed again. But this time, he wasn't reacting. He was leading. You're adapting, the voice said. Naruto smirked faintly. Yeah. A pause. You're not the only one who can learn. The domain shifted again. More aggressively now. Because the balance had changed. Naruto wasn't just surviving. He was interfering. And that was a problem. Elsewhere. In a deeper layer of that same domain. Itachi Uchiha opened his eyes fully. But what he saw wasn't empty space. It was Konoha. Perfect. Unchanged. Peaceful. So this is my test, Itachi said quietly. Because he understood instantly. This wasn't real. But that didn't make it harmless. From behind him, a familiar voice spoke. You could have stayed. Quote. Itachi didn't turn. Because he already knew who it was. That's not how this works, he replied calmly. Shisui Uchiha stood behind him. Alive. Unharmed. Exactly as Itachi remembered. You chose this path, Shisui said. But you didn't have to. Itachi closed his eyes briefly. This isn't real. Shisui smiled slightly. Does that make it meaningless? That question was dangerous. Because this wasn't about deception. It was about temptation. Itachi turned slowly, looking directly at him. Number. A pause. But it doesn't change the truth. Shisui stepped closer. And what is that? Itachi's voice remained steady. That I already made my choice. Quote. The illusion flickered slightly. Not breaking. But reacting. Because Itachi wasn't resisting emotionally. He was accepting. And that made the illusion weaker. Back in Naruto's space. The pressure collapsed inward again. Faster now. Stronger. Because the domain had adjusted to him. Naruto stopped moving. Not because he was trapped. But because he understood something. You're not trying to kill me, he said. Silence. Then. Correct. Naruto's eyes narrowed. You're testing me. A pause. Yes. That answer changed everything. Naruto straightened slightly. Then stop wasting time. The space around him froze for a second. Because that was unexpected. You're confident, the voice said. Naruto shrugged slightly. Number. A pause. Just not interested in playing games. The domain shifted again. But differently this time. Less pressure. More structure. As if the space was forming something. Naruto watched carefully. And then, a figure appeared. Not fully solid. But visible. Humanoid. Featureless. So this is you, Naruto said. The figure didn't respond immediately. Then, a representation, it said. Naruto tilted his head slightly. Close enough. The figure stepped forward. You're stronger than expected. Naruto crossed his arms. You're weaker than I thought. Silence. Because that wasn't just confidence. That was pressure. The figure didn't react emotionally. But the space around it tightened slightly. You misunderstand, it said. I'm not here to defeat you. Naruto's gaze sharpened. Then what? A pause. To decide if you're worth keeping. That line shifted everything. Naruto didn't move. Keeping. The figure nodded slightly. Your world produces anomalies. A pause. Most are removed. Naruto's expression hardened. You mean killed. Correct. No hesitation. No emotion. Naruto took a step forward. And me? The figure studied him. Undetermined. Silence. Because that meant Naruto wasn't just fighting for survival. He was being evaluated. Naruto exhaled slowly. Then here's my answer. A pause. I'm not something you get to decide. Quote. The space around them reacted instantly. Because that statement was rejection. Not of the attack, but of the system itself. The figure tilted its head slightly. You reject order. Naruto shook his head. Number. A pause. I reject you deciding it. That line hit deeper than any attack. Because it challenged the core of what this entity believed. The space tightened again. But not as an attack. As reaction. You're inefficient, the figure said. Naruto smirked. Yeah. A pause. And I'm fine with that. Because to Naruto, imperfection wasn't a flaw. It was what made things real. The figure stepped closer. Then you will fail. Naruto didn't move. Maybe. A pause. But at least it'll be my choice. Silence. Because that was something the entity didn't fully understand. Choice. Unpredictable. irrational, human. And that made Naruto dangerous. The space around them began to destabilize again. Not collapsing, but reacting unpredictably. Because Naruto was no longer playing by its rules. And that was something it couldn't fully control. Far away, Itachi stood still as the illusion around him began to crack. Because he had passed his test. Not by resisting, but by understanding. And now, he moved forward, toward the real threat. Because Naruto wasn't alone anymore, even if it felt like it. And soon, the two would meet again. Inside a space that wasn't meant to be challenged, but was about to be. The space didn't collapse again. It listened. That was the first difference Naruto Uzumaki noticed after he rejected the entity's decision. The pressure didn't immediately return. The distortion didn't tighten. Instead, the domain held still, like it was recalculating. That pause told Naruto more than any attack could. This thing wasn't just powerful. It was adaptive. You're thinking, Naruto said calmly. The figure didn't deny it. Re-evaluating. Naruto let out a faint breath. Good. A pause. Because I'm not done. The ground, or what passed for ground, shifted beneath him, not physically, but conceptually, like the idea of standing was being questioned. Naruto adjusted without looking down. He had already understood that reacting to what he saw would slow him down. So he stopped relying on sight. He closed his eyes. For a second, nothing changed. Then everything did. The space revealed itself. Not as emptiness, but as layers. Thin, overlapping layers, slightly out of sync, constantly adjusting to each other. The domain wasn't one structure. It was multiple. And that was its weakness. Naruto opened his eyes again. You're not one space, he said. The figure remained still. Observation confirmed. Naruto smirked slightly. Yeah, and you're holding it together. That statement caused a subtle ripple. Not visible, but real. Because Naruto had moved from reacting to understanding. You're stabilizing multiple layers to control outcomes, Naruto continued. That's why everything feels off. The figure tilted its head. Continue. Naruto stepped forward. This time, the space didn't immediately resist. That alone confirmed it. You're not just removing people, Naruto said. You're removing possibilities. Silence. Because that was the core. The figure spoke again, slower this time. Possibilities create instability. Quote. Naruto shook his head. Number. A pause. They create choice. The space flickered again. More visibly now. Because that idea didn't align with the system. Choice leads to failure, the entity replied. Naruto's eyes sharpened. Number. A step forward. Choice leads to growth. The contradiction between them wasn't just philosophical. It was structural. And the domain was starting to feel it. The layers shifted unevenly for a moment. Just a moment. But enough. Naruto moved instantly. Not attacking the figure, but the space around it. He struck. Not with brute force, but with timing. Right when two layers misaligned. The result. A crack. Small. But real. The figure stepped back slightly. Not from damage, but from recalibration. You're interfering, it said. Naruto smirked. That's the idea. The domain reacted again. More aggressively this time. Multiple layers collapsed inward, trying to force synchronization. Naruto didn't resist directly. He moved between them. Through them. Using their instability against them. Every step, every shift, created more imbalance. Because the more the entity tried to control everything, the harder it became to maintain perfection. And perfection was its foundation. Elsewhere, Itachi Uchiha stepped through what remained of the illusion. But now, it wasn't resisting him anymore. Because the system had shifted focus. Naruto had become the priority. So this is where it leads, Itachi said quietly. The space around him changed. Less stable, more reactive, which meant one thing. Naruto was already engaging it directly. Itachi didn't rush, because rushing would disrupt timing. And timing was everything here. He moved forward steadily, analyzing, adapting. Because unlike Naruto, Itachi didn't confront systems. He dismantled them. Back in Naruto's space, the figure stepped forward again. This time, more defined, more present. You're causing instability, it said. Naruto nodded. Yeah, that leads to collapse. Naruto's expression didn't change. Then fix it. The figure paused. Because that response didn't fit expected patterns. You misunderstand, it said. Collapse as failure. Naruto shook his head. Number. A pause. It's change. The domain flickered harder this time. Because now, Naruto wasn't just resisting. He was introducing something the system couldn't process easily. Uncontrolled change. The figure raised its hand. And for the first time, the space attacked differently. Not compression. Not removal. Division. Naruto felt it instantly. The layers began separating, pulling him apart conceptually. Not physically, but in presence. Like he was being split across multiple states. So this is your next move, Naruto muttered. He didn't panic. He focused. Because if the space was dividing him, then he needed to anchor himself. Not to the environment, but to himself. Naruto closed his eyes again. Not escaping. Centering. His chakra didn't explode outward. It condensed. Focused. Defined. And suddenly, the division stopped. Not completely, but enough. Naruto opened his eyes. You can't split something that knows where it stands, he said. The figure remained silent. Because that was new. Naruto stepped forward again. This time, closer than before. You keep trying to control everything, he said. But you don't understand something. The figure didn't interrupt. The more you control, Naruto continued, the more fragile it becomes. The domain flickered violently now. Because that was happening. The layers were no longer perfectly aligned. And the more the entity tried to fix it, the worse it became. You're destabilizing the system, it said. Naruto smiled faintly. Yeah. A pause. Because your system can't handle reality. That statement was direct, final, and it hit. The space around them began to break down. Not collapse, but lose cohesion. Because perfection was no longer possible. And without perfection, the system struggled. The figure stepped back, not retreating, recalculating. You're an anomaly, it said. Naruto shrugged slightly. I've been called worse. Quote. The domain pulsed again. But weaker now. Less stable. Because Naruto had shifted the balance. Not by overpowering, but by forcing it to adapt beyond its limits. And systems built on perfection don't handle imperfection well. From the edge of that space, a presence appeared. Quiet. Controlled. Watching. Itachi Uchiha had arrived. He didn't interfere immediately. Because he needed to see. Understand. And Naruto was already doing something remarkable. He wasn't just fighting the domain. He was changing it. Back at the center, Naruto stood firm. The space around him unstable. The figure in front of him less certain than before. You're losing control, Naruto said calmly. The figure didn't deny it. Adjusting. Naruto smirked. Call it whatever you want. A pause. It's the same thing. The domain flickered again. Because now, it wasn't just reacting to Naruto. It was struggling to maintain itself. And that meant one thing. Naruto had reached its limit. Not by destroying it, but by forcing it to confront something it couldn't eliminate. Unpredictability. Choice. Human nature. And as the space around them continued to destabilize, Naruto took one final step forward. Not to attack, not to finish, but to prove something. You can't fix the world by removing what makes it real, he said. The figure remained still, because for the first time, it didn't have an immediate answer. And that silence was louder than anything else. Because it meant Naruto had done something no one else had. He didn't just survive, he challenged the system itself. And made it hesitate. And in a place built on absolute certainty. That hesitation was the beginning of its end. The hesitation didn't disappear. It spread. Not like an explosion. Not like a collapse. But like a flaw in glass. Small at first, then branching outward in thin, invisible lines across the domain. Naruto Uzumaki could feel it now more clearly than before. The space wasn't just reacting to him anymore. It was struggling to maintain itself. The figure in front of him didn't move immediately. That alone was new. You've introduced inconsistency, it said slowly. Naruto shrugged slightly. Yeah. A pause. That's kind of how people work. The layers around them shifted again, but not smoothly. They overlapped unevenly now, like multiple versions of reality trying to align but failing to match perfectly. Inconsistency leads to collapse, the entity said. Naruto shook his head. Number. A step forward. It leads to change. That word again. Change. The domain flickered harder this time. Because it didn't reject the idea anymore. It couldn't fully process it either. And that was worse. Naruto stopped just a few steps away from the figure. Closer than before. Closer than anything else had gotten. You keep saying you're fixing things, Naruto continued. But all you're doing is removing anything you can't predict. The figure tilted its head slightly. Prediction ensures stability. Naruto's gaze didn't waver. Number. A pause. It just avoids risk. That statement cut directly into the system's logic. Because avoiding risk also meant avoiding growth. The domain pulsed again. Weaker now. Risk leads to failure, the entity said. Naruto smirked faintly. Yeah. A pause. But it also leads to something better. Silence. Because that outcome wasn't guaranteed. And the system didn't deal with uncertainty. From the edge of that unstable space, Itachi Uchiha watched carefully. He hadn't stepped in yet. Not because he couldn't, but because he didn't need to. Naruto wasn't losing. He was doing something far more dangerous. He was changing the rules of engagement. And Itachi understood something important. If he interfered too soon, he might disrupt that. So he waited, observed, calculated. Back at the center, Naruto took another step forward. This time, the space didn't resist. It lagged. A slight delay. But enough. Naruto noticed instantly. You're slowing down, he said. The figure remained still, processing. Naruto chuckled softly. That's not a good sign for you. The domain shifted again. But unevenly. Some layers stabilized. Others broke apart. Because now, it wasn't operating as one system anymore. It was fragmenting. You're destabilizing the environment, the entity said. Naruto nodded. Yeah. A pause. Because your system can't handle something it doesn't control. That statement forced another pause. Longer this time. Because now, the entity had to consider something new. Not how to eliminate Naruto, but how to deal with something that didn't fit its structure. You are inefficient, it said again. Naruto smiled faintly. And you're too perfect. A pause. That's your weakness. The domain reacted violently for a second. Then stabilized again. But not completely. Because now, even its corrections were imperfect. Naruto raised his hand slightly. Not attacking. Just testing. The space around it flickered. Delayed. Unstable. Yeah. Naruto muttered. You're breaking. The figure stepped forward again. Closer this time. Not to attack. To understand. You are introducing variables beyond control, it said. Naruto nodded. That's what people do. A pause. We're not supposed to be controlled. Silence. Because that idea didn't align with its purpose. Control ensures survival, the entity replied. Naruto's eyes sharpened. Number. A step forward. Choice does. That contradiction was absolute. And the domain couldn't reconcile it. The layers began separating again. Not by design, but by failure. Because now, the system was trying to handle two incompatible truths. And it couldn't. At that moment, Itachi moved. Not fast. Not sudden. Just present. Itachi Uchiha stepped into the center of the unstable domain. Naruto didn't turn. He already knew. Took you long enough, Naruto said lightly. Itachi didn't respond to the tone. You've done enough, he said calmly. Naruto smirked slightly. Not yet. Itachi's gaze shifted toward the figure. Number. A pause. You've done exactly what was needed. Naruto frowned slightly. What do you mean? Itachi's eyes narrowed slightly. You forced it to adapt beyond its limits. A pause. Now it's unstable. Naruto looked around. The flickering layers. The delayed reactions. The inconsistencies. Yeah. Naruto muttered. I noticed. Quote. Itachi stepped forward. Closer to the figure. Now it can be broken. That line changed everything. Because until now, Naruto wasn't trying to destroy it. He was trying to understand it. But Itachi saw the next step. The figure turned slightly, now facing both of them. Two anomalies, it said. Its voice remained calm, but slower, less certain. Correction required. The domain pulsed again, trying to stabilize, but failing. Because now, it wasn't facing one unpredictable variable. It was facing two. And both understood it. Naruto stepped beside Itachi. Not speaking, but aligned. Because now, this wasn't just survival. This was confrontation. Against something that wasn't meant to be challenged. But had been. And as the domain flickered harder, more violently, more unpredictably, one truth became clear. The system was losing control. And Naruto and Itachi were about to finish what they started. Not by overpowering it, but by breaking what made it stable. And once that stability was gone, everything else would follow. The domain didn't collapse all at once. It gave in. Not like a battle lost. Not like a structure destroyed. But like something that could no longer hold its own logic together. The layers flickered faster now, overlapping, separating, misaligning, until the space itself no longer knew what it was supposed to be. At the center stood Naruto Uzumaki and Itachi Uchiha, not attacking, not rushing, just present. And that presence was enough. The figure looked at them both. For the first time, it hesitated. Inconsistency exceeds threshold, it said slowly. Its voice wasn't calm anymore. Not fully. System, unstable. Naruto crossed his arms slightly. Yeah, a pause. That's what happens when you try to control everything. Itachi didn't speak, but his gaze never left the entity. Because this moment was precise. The figure raised its hand, trying one last time to stabilize the domain. But the space didn't respond properly. Some layers obeyed, others didn't. Because now, the system had lost synchronization. Correction required, it repeated. Naruto shook his head. Number. A step forward. It's over. That word hit differently here. Because in a system built on certainty, an ending wasn't supposed to come from outside. But it had. Itachi finally moved. Not fast. Not forceful. Just exact. He stepped into the unstable center, where the layers overlapped the most. You built this on perfection, Itachi said calmly. A pause. But perfection cannot adapt. The figure turned toward him. Adaptation. In progress. Itachi shook his head slightly. Too late. And then, he acted. Not with a jutsu. Not with force. But with timing. The exact moment when the layers misaligned again. He struck. Not the figure. The connection holding everything together. And that was the breaking point. The domain didn't explode. It unraveled. Like threads being pulled apart. Layer by layer. Until nothing held. The figure flickered. Its form losing cohesion. System failing, it said. Naruto stepped forward. Standing directly in front of it now. Good. A pause. Because it was never right to begin with. Quote. The figure looked at him. Not with emotion. But with something close to recognition. You are unpredictable. Naruto smiled faintly. That's kind of the point. The space around them began to dissolve completely. No more layers. No more structure. Just fragments. Fading. The figure's form broke apart. Not violently. But inevitably. Inefficiency remains, it said faintly. Naruto's voice came one last time. Yeah. Quote. A pause. And so does choice. And with that, the domain disappeared. Silence returned. Real silence. The forest came back. The ground felt solid. The air, normal. As if nothing had happened. But everything had. Naruto stood still for a moment. Then exhaled slowly. That was weird. Beside him, Itachi gave a faint glance. It's not over. Naruto frowned slightly. You think there's more? Itachi looked ahead. Something like that doesn't exist alone. A pause. It was part of something bigger. Naruto's expression sharpened. Then we find it. Itachi didn't disagree. But he didn't move immediately either. Because now, the situation had changed. They hadn't just defeated an enemy. They had disrupted a system. And systems respond. Naruto cracked his knuckles slightly. Guess we just made things worse. Itachi's voice remained calm. Or better. Naruto smirked. Same thing sometimes. The wind moved again. Normal this time. But carrying something else. Change. Because somewhere out there, something had noticed. And what Naruto and Itachi had just done would not go unanswered. Naruto looked ahead, eyes focused. Not uncertain. Not hesitant. Ready. Because now, this wasn't just a hidden mission anymore. This was a war that no one else even knew had started. And the two of them were already in the middle of it. Together. In secret. And far more dangerous than anyone could imagine.